We know about Zimbabwe's problems with its economy over the past decade. We know about the dilapidated state of the manufacturing sector as well as general industry. And we do know that one of the sectors that also hardest hit was, of course, the power sector. But just how bad is Zimbabwe's power situation, if you could just paint a picture for us?
It's very harsh of us to conclude that Zimbabwe's power sector is suffering greatly at this point in time, because basically there are two elements within the Zimbabwean situation that we need to highlight. The political situation is extremely complicated at this point, and two, the power crisis that is prevalent within the region is not isolated to Zimbabwe, but is in fact a regional crisis. Having said that, however, recent developments have taken place, such as the granting of a license to Rio Zim Private Limited to develop a 2,400 megawatt power station at a cost of about US $2 billion, and the recommissioning of a Bulawayo thermal power station, which is a 100 megawatt thermal power plant, and of course the importation of 100 megawatts of hydroelectric power from the DRC. These developments indicate that the Zimbabwean government is keen and intends to address the current economic and obviously energy crisis within the country.
So globally, how much would you say Zimbabwe is looking at in order to be able to supply just enough power for its citizens and industry?
At present, Zimbabwe has an energy demand of about 2,400 megawatts, which is quite significant, taking into consideration that it only has an installed capacity of 1,960 megawatts. So we're looking at investment of over $3 billion, possibly looking at $5 billion to bring Zimbabwe up to about 4,000 megawatts of power in anticipation of a long-term growth in demand.
Yeah, indeed, when I look through your report, the sense I get at the end of it all is that what Zimbabwe represents right now is opportunity in terms of investors coming in and taking advantage of the deficit situation that we have there. What are the constraints to getting into the power sector and for private industry to try and help alleviate the situation?
The major constraint that we have noticed as Frost Sullivan at this point in time is obviously the ambiguity surrounding Zimbabwe's indigenization laws. There is interest that has developed over the last 24 months owing to the change in the political landscape within the country. There are several projects that are lined up and are feasible and can be taken on by interested investors. But the issue on the indigenization laws, on whether they will be in fact put into place and what sort of requirements are needed for investors, is possibly one of the key issues. And of course, there is uncertainty on the political landscape in which direction it is possibly taking in the near term and of course in the long term.
Yeah, but I suppose at the same time what they say is that, you know, with risk comes higher returns as well. So we're seeing some guys coming in. You talked about Rio Zim situation, and we do also know that there are other players that are looking at the Zimbabwean situation. So in terms of people who are coming in and trying to take advantage of this, would you have any other people apart from the Rio Zim story that you mentioned?
As mentioned earlier, the ambiguity surrounding the indigenization laws. We should understand that Rio Zim Private Limited is actually a wholly owned Zimbabwean corporation. It's a diversified mining company. So in this situation, I guess it is better off as an investor because of obviously the ambiguity surrounding the indigenization laws. However, other investors from other countries, foreign investors, if so to speak, would face certain challenges with regards to the indigenization and the political landscape. As you do understand, power sector projects normally require a large capital outlay, and at this point in time, most of the projects within Zimbabwe are greenfield projects which would require significant monitoring and significant funding. So it's extremely difficult for investors to look at investing in the short term. But in the long term, however, depending on the current situation and how it develops, it will be a worthwhile investment for potential investments.
Yeah. Now, one of the challenges that you mentioned in the report is, of course, the pricing issue. We have got electricity there selling around 7.5 cents per kilowatt. How does that compare regionally?
Well, the regional tariff at present is about 12 US cents to the kilowatt hour for the energy charge, which is basically what the state utilities within various SADC countries are stipulating as the tariff that will bring cost reflectiveness to the production of electricity. What I can say is that the current tariff of US 7.5 cents is insufficient for the state utility ZESA to meet its operational and possibly funding needs. But at the same time, there's a social crisis that needs to be addressed within Zimbabwe in terms of end users of electricity not being able to sufficiently pay these bills, as some have outstanding bills from as far as 2008 before the introduction of United States dollars and other foreign currencies. It's difficult right now to say where ZESA is possibly going to plug the funding gap from due to the current state where possibly the tariffs are going to be reversed. But at the same time, I'm sure that some sort of short-term to mid-term plan is going to be put in place.
Yeah, because that was the question I was going to ask you next, because you've got the government on the one hand forcing ZESA to reverse prices, a 30% increase, which is hefty by any standards, but perhaps understood in the context of where Zimbabwe is. And at the same time, you have a severe shortage of electricity. What's your sense of the political will to try and understand that you need to keep the lights on?
According to my understanding, the political will is not the major issue at present. We do understand that the energy sector is a very delicate issue in terms of the amounts of money that are required for investment within that particular sector. So the political will is obviously present because Zimbabwe is looking to grow its manufacturing and mining sectors and, of course, the agricultural sector. From these sectors, there is a large-scale employment of the people of Zimbabwe, and obviously the investment is expected once the question on energy is addressed. So at this point in time, the political will, I'm sure, is there, but obviously the current political situation does not enable for everything to be put in place at the appropriate time and in an appropriate manner.